Okay, so optimizing your routine. This honestly is probably one of the most important things that you guys can have as a business owner, because when you guys transition, I mean, think about what you guys have been through your entire life. The moment you've gone to preschool, you've had structure and you have somewhere to be every single hour of the day. Even your free time was structured. You go to school from 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. to the afternoon. You may have an hour or two to do your homework, and then you have sports in the evening. So you guys have been told what to do your entire life. When you get to middle school, same thing. When you get to high school, same thing. You got classes to be to. Maybe you guys start working in the evenings. When you guys go to college, even though there's a little bit more free time, there's still structure. You have classes at specific times. Maybe you have a little bit more intermission in the middle of the day, but there's still places to be and things to do based on what other people are telling you to do. And then when you get into a 9-to-5 job, same thing. Working 9 to 5. Maybe you guys are working crazy hours in the evenings as well, but you guys have always had something to do, somewhere to be, and someone to show up for. When you transition into business, all that flooring underneath you is ripped away. And it feels like you're falling on like free falling, right? Because there's no structure. There's no one telling you what to do. There's no one telling you where to be. And for the first time in your life, you're responsible for your own schedule and you're responsible for your own results. And that's really challenging for a lot of people to adjust to, especially when you realize that there's not actually that much you need to do in a day to be successful. I think me and Matt talk about this. I mean, Blaze grew his business working full time. He's working part time, grew his business, to multiple 5 figures a month within, 60 days. And so there's not actually that much you need to do, but you just need to make sure that you have structure to do it. And so what we're going to do in this training is show you guys how to build your own routine to execute on. And there's one other thing I want to add too. When you guys do transition full time and you're working full time for yourself, you're going to realize, like I mentioned, that there's not that much you need to do. You create content, you generate leads, you close a few deals, you check in with your clients are happy. You look at the time, it's 11 a.m. And you're like, shit, I got all day. Well, you earned it, right? There's something called survivor's guilt. When people survive like tragic accidents, like plane crashes, the people feel super guilty for surviving. You will feel that in entrepreneurship because it's 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, you're chilling, you got nothing to do. And you're like, I need to be grinding. I need to be doing something no, you can relax. Like if you checked all your boxes and your business is profitable, your clients are happy and you're growing, you're good. Like you can relax. So having a good structure and schedule will kind of help you relax into that as well. First thing is that you do need a daily routine. That's going to be the number one. I always say is that you need to treat your business like it's a 9-to-5 job. If you were to be an employee for your business, you would probably be fired. Your job in your business is to create content, engage with leads, book calls, close clients, get clients results. Yet you guys don't feel like creating content. You guys don't want to send messages. You guys are scared to book calls and you decide not to do it. If you guys were working for someone else, they would fire you immediately, but you guys don't show up for your business as if you were your own employee. But writing down a schedule and a routine of like, okay, this is when I'm doing X, this is when I'm doing Y, this is when I'm doing Z, you guys will create a little bit more of a consistent structure on actually executing the thing, regardless of how you're feeling. And that's the biggest thing that you guys need to get over is executing based on how you're feeling. Because if you guys wait until you feel good, you're going to be waiting forever, or you're going to be extremely inconsistent. But if you guys have a routine that you can execute on consistently, you will consistently get results. And when you get results, you will feel good. And that momentum will be able to just, compound. So first things first, you need a daily routine. Now, if you are working a 9-to-5, you're in school, or you have kids, you need to understand what your non-negotiables are. Your non-negotiables are things that you cannot remove from your schedule. They are responsibilities and obligations that they're non-negotiables. So if you're in school, showing up to class and doing your homework is a non-negotiable. If you're working, your job is a non-negotiable. It's not like you just don't show up to school. If you have kids, your family time, taking care of your kids, maybe, the hour it takes for them to get ready for school and send them off is a non-negotiable, right? So those are things that you cannot remove. So the first thing that comes down to when it comes to building your schedule is understanding what these concrete blocks in your schedules are. So that way you can work your priorities around those blocks, right? Because everything that we're going to do is going to be worked around the non-negotiables. So the first step in with your kids is being like, okay, what are the most demanding hours of my day when it comes to raising my family? I'm not there yet. So So, but it could be like, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. is like really crazy. And then like maybe 9:30, 11 is like maybe not so crazy. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but I would really encourage you to just look at your schedule and be like, okay, these are the areas that's chaos. These are the areas that are not so chaos. And so the areas that are not so chaos is where I'm going to put my priorities in and actually execute on the business. And the other thing too is like, this is going to change all the time. This changes for me every 6 months or so, right? So the next thing is going to be understanding your priorities, okay? Priorities are different than non-negotiables. Non-negotiables, they're responsibilities that you cannot get out. Priorities are things that are important for you to move the needle, but these are fluid. They can change. One could take priority over the other, and you shouldn't have too many. I always say nail it down to 3 to 4 at a time, nothing more, maybe even less. Because if you're working a 9 to 5 or you're a mom or you're in school, you're not going to have enough time to be able to focus on 3 to 4 projects at a time. It might only be 1 to 2 projects at a time, right? So for an example, if you're starting with PTBI and you're working a 9 to 5 job and you have school and maybe you only have 2 hours a day to be able to work on your business, we always say, don't execute on anything in the business, just focus on the course material for the first month. The reason why we say that is because if you only have 2 hours a day and you're trying to do the course material and you're trying to execute on the business and you're trying to do all these things, you're not going to make that much progress. You're going to get overwhelmed. It's going to take you way longer than it needs to. Whereas if you just prioritize one thing at a time, you can make significant progress, cross it off the list, and then that time gets replaced with the next priority, which in this case, it would be the first month going through the PTBI course in full. Then the next 30 days after that, getting all of your systems set up, using those 1 to 2 hours a day to set up your systems. Then after that, once those systems are set up, use the next 1 to 2 hours a day to build your content skill set, and then your lead gen skill set, and then your sales skill set. And then all of a sudden, by day 60, you're fully ramped up and you're making progress. So understand what your priorities are right now. List out all the things that like could take priority, and then choose maybe 1, 2, or 3 that are like top of the list. And those will get worked around your schedule. So for Ari, for example, you might only have 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. a day to work on your business. So you probably shouldn't be focusing on 10 different things at once. It's okay for you to have 10 different things for you to do, but understand that, hey, these next 7 days, I'm only going to focus on making progress on this one thing. And then once that one thing is complete, it might be a certification, maybe it's an ebook that you're writing for your clients, maybe it could be anything. But once that thing's complete, then you replace it with the next priority. And building a business is not about doing all these things at once. It's about just slowly, consistently checking off one box after the other, doing it over a long period of time. You guys got to understand this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You guys are looking to build a business for the next 10 years. Not the next 3 months. So it's okay to take your time and understand that it's going to take time. So work your priorities around your non-negotiables. So really take a look at your schedule and know what your blocks for your non-negotiables are. Choose 1 to 2 priorities a week to work on. You can create a list of however many that you want, but only choose one that you actually want to make significant progress on. And then work those priorities around your schedule, around the blocks that are actually blocked off. So if you guys have in-person training clients that take up from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., then that non-negotiable is blocked off. That spot on your calendar is blocked off. Your priorities might fill around that. So you might work on your priorities from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. before your training sessions, or from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. after your training sessions. The other thing too is cut out distractions, right? You really need to understand what is a time suck and what isn't a time suck. So a lot of people don't really pay attention to like where their time is going and how much opportunity that they're losing with that time. The thing is when you are starting your business, you have to give everything to that business. Because if your time is going into all these places that's not the business and you're also working a lot, you're not going to make progress very fast. But if you give everything into your non-negotiables and your business, you can eventually get to a place to where the business takes over everything and you no longer have those responsibilities. When I was first starting my business, I had to work it around school and a job. Then I pretty much sacrificed everything for 2 years and I got my business to the place where I was able to drop out of school and I was able to quit my job. And then I only had my business and a ton of free time. So short-term sacrifice to go all in on the business for the next 12 to 24 months. So you could get to a point to where you have more freedom than you even know what to do with. More freedom, you feel guilty about it. That sounds nice. So cut out your distractions. That might mean too, the evenings get sacrificed for the business, also the weekends too. I actually love working on the weekends. It's probably the best time to work. Saturday and Sunday are the best time because your phone's not ringing. People are off of social media. It's really like a good time to be present into deep work. So Saturday and Sunday, really great times to create content and work on like big projects like course building and stuff like that. Set aside time for zombie mode. So that's just like, really make sure that you're like setting aside time to just turn your brain off. Because if you don't, you will get burnt out. There's a difference between distractions and zombie mode. You want to think about what's going to recharge you. If you are going to get recharged by going out and playing basketball with your friends or going out and grabbing drinks with the girls, then absolutely do that if that's going to recharge you. But if you're not the type of person to get recharged by that, and that's an energy suck, if it's an energy suck for you and you're doing it out of obligation because you feel like you want to be a yes person for your friends, then cut it out. That's a distraction. If you're the type of person that gets recharged by watching TV and scrolling on TikTok, then set aside time for that. Don't feel guilty about it. As long as you're making sure that you're making progress on the business and you're keeping your responsibilities in check, it is totally fine for you to set aside time for things that are going to recharge you. Personally, I spend a lot of time on TikTok. Like, I love it. It fills my cup. It recharges me. Like you'd be surprised by how much screen time I have on TikTok, and I do not feel guilty about it because things are going good. So as long as it recharges you, like, you should set aside time to do that in the times that you need. Like, weekends are good times, evenings are good times. Screen time a day is like 8 to 9 hours daily. No, not on TikTok, not just on TikTok, but on my phone in general. TikTok is probably like 1 to 2 hours a day. Now, once you have your routine, stick to it. Actually stick to it. I forget who I was talking to about this. I actually had a few conversations this week about this topic, about waking up and not feeling 100%, right? What do you do when you wake up and you don't feel 100%? There's a voice inside of your head that's always telling you to do more and more and more and more, and that you feel guilty for not doing more and more and more. My strategy behind this is understanding what my routine is. The night before, I always plan out my day for the next day. Like, these are the things that I need to do. These are the things that I'm gonna work on. And when I wake up in the morning, regardless of how I feel, I stick to the things that I wrote down. And if I'm not feeling 100%, which happens very often, there's weeks where I wake up and I do not want to get out of bed. I don't want to work. I don't want to show up on social media. There's days where, I will take a day or two off of social media. I did it this week, but I will always stick to the things that I wrote down the night before, and nothing more, nothing less. Just make sure that you have your routine down, plan out what needs to be done the next day, and you execute on that, nothing more, nothing less. And if you feel like shit, then once you cross those things off the list, then take the rest of the day off. There's days this week where I got everything done by 10 a.m. and I said, I'm going to bed, I'm taking a nap, I'm out for the day. Like, that's it.
I'm assuming that's why you make a differentiation between non-negotiables and priorities, because if you just feel like shit and you're like, I really don't want to do anything, you can just prioritize your non-negotiables and then just call it a day.
Yep. Yeah, you can absolutely do that.
So what I've done too is I made like an Excel sheet and I actually like color code everything. So like I know exactly like what time I'm doing it and then when I'm gonna stop and then work on the next thing. So
Yep.
you guys can see that I like get color coded and everything, like just in an Excel document.
I do the same thing. I will literally just write down today, and then I will go on my Google Calendar and be like, meeting at this time, break. So during my break, what am I gonna do? So if my email is flooded with like calls to review, then I'll write down call reviews. And then I'll have a meeting, and then break. But instead of just writing down break, I actually write down what I'm going to do. Because I find that a lot of people lack clarity when they have a break and they're like, okay, this is working time. And then working time comes around and they don't know what to work on because they haven't actually established clarity of what they're actually gonna work on. So when you're actually writing down your plan for the next day and you have that working time available, write down what it is that you're gonna work on. I'm gonna make a new YouTube video. I'm gonna film Instagram content, or I'm gonna edit Instagram content. I'm going to do lead generation, right? I'm going to have a call reviewed by my success coach, right? I'm gonna schedule a one-on-one call. So just like write down not just what the break in time is, but what you're actually going to work on. It helps a ton with productivity. Just to give you guys an example, I have a few routines that I've had over the last few years. All right, so this is just my routine from high school. When I was in high school, and these are just for examples. These actually were my routines during this time of my life too. So I would wake up at 7 a.m. for school. This is a non-negotiable. I cannot get around this. 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. to non-negotiable. When I turned 16, 17, I wanted to get into fitness, right? This is when Instagram was popping off. I saw people were making money online. I decided that's what I want to do. And I wanted to build my body through the gym. But I didn't have much time. So guess what had to go? All of my sports, all of my music, those are now priorities that are pushed down the list. This was my non-negotiable for the day. This is my priority. This was worked around my non-negotiable. And reading too. I got really into personal development, started learning about finances, mindset, things like that. And so this was worked into the evening. But guess what also got pushed off the list? School. I had terrible grades. I didn't get into any colleges, but it didn't really matter because I knew that my priorities were fitness and entrepreneurship. I knew I didn't need to go to school, and I didn't need sports, so those got pushed to the wayside. And I did this for 2 years while I was in high school, and it allowed me to make very significant progress on those areas of my life. So a lot of people think that they need like a crazy full schedule, but in reality, if you just have an optimized schedule that's like optimized to your priorities of the things that you want to progress on, and you just stick to that routine for years, you're going to make significant progress on those areas of your life. The next chapter of my life was college. I really wanted to make sure that I can train around the time that I wanted to train, which is around 10 or 11. So I made sure to pick classes around those times. And it took me 4 years to get a 2-year degree because there were certain classes that I needed that was outside of the time that I wanted to take them. Like there was classes that I needed to take around this time. I said, I'd rather not take that class and I'd rather go train. So 8 a.m. to school, or 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. was school, 11 to 12 was training, creating content, 12 to 3 was reading, podcasting, personal development, and then 3 to 8 p.m. pretty consistently. I had different jobs during this time of my life. I worked at a yogurt shop. I was doing in-person training in my mom's garage. I was also bussing tables at the time too. But you can see here, I didn't really have time for homework, projects, things like that. I got kicked out of my community college for academic dismissal because that just wasn't important to me. What was important to me was my priorities, which is building my body, building my business, and it paid off, thankfully. Now, this was when I was full-time online coaching. So this is probably going to be the most relevant routine for you guys here. This is the routine that I followed from when I went full-time in, I think like 2017, 2018 to about like 8 months ago. So the first thing is obviously I would wake up around 7. From 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., the first thing that I would do in the morning was create content, right? So that means showing up on my stories, putting up engagement, interactive pieces on my stories, posting on social media. So that's going to be like hard posts, my feeds, and then doing lead generation. So sending out messages, sending out DMs, because those are the most important things that you can do to grow and maintain your business. The number one thing I always say is that if you do not have calls on the calendar, you are not making money. If you look at your calendar on Monday and there's not a single call on your calendar on Monday, guess what? You're not making any money that day. But if you have 3 calls on your calendar, well, then you have a good chance you're making money that day, which is great. So lead gen content needs to be first. The other thing too is content requires a lot of creative work. You need to show up and be creative. And it is so much easier to show up and be creative before you've had to deal with the bullshit of the day. It is really hard to say that you're going to create content at 5 p.m. at night. And then at 3 p.m. you get a client that wants to leave your program. And now you're all flustered and now you're not creating content because you got other problems to deal with. So get it knocked out first thing. So that way it's up, it's good, you can move on. I like to train around 9 to 11. Usually when I'm training, I'm always creating content. Even if I'm not posting the content, I'm still capturing it, right? That way it's there. When I feel the inspiration to create content, I have content to fall back on. From 11 to 2, this is like lunchtime. I would usually read podcasts, respond to some DMs from leads that I hit up in the morning, and would book calls. And then now all the creative stuff is done. From 2 to 6 is all calls. So if you have calls, try to schedule them through this time because you've already done the most important work with creating content and generating leads. Now you could show up for your clients, take sales calls without that nagging voice saying, oh, you didn't do what you needed to do today. You've already done it. So it's crossed off, right? But sales calls, try to prioritize sales calls first and foremost, and then always fall back on your priorities. So sales calls are always priority number 1. That should be like, you should have calls on the calendar. If you do not have calls on your calendar, then guess what you're doing? You're using this time to generate leads, right? In the DMs to book calls for the next day. If you don't have any leads to generate and talk with, maybe your page isn't growing, maybe you don't have that much interaction on your page, then next step behind that is creating content, creating freebies, creating lead magnets, so that way you can generate leads. But this time should be focused on growing the business. And then 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., I always say build the business. So this is like, because at this point, like most people go to bed, you're not gonna be taking sales calls at like 8 p.m. at night, 9 p.m. at night. So if you need to build out like resources, build out client programs, build out nutrition programs, things like that, you can pretty easily fulfill this work. You could put on a little bit of music, put on like cool lights, kind of like get in, like create your mood and fulfill that work when everyone else goes to bed and checks off. There was many moments when I was first starting my coaching business where I thought about going out and getting a job. I was making maybe like $2 to $3 grand a month, but you guys know in San Diego, that's like, you're barely making it by. And so I'm like, should I just go, apply for a job? Should I just go, back to the restaurant? And I would always think to myself, I'm like, one, it'll take me probably a week to 30 days to apply for jobs. It'll take me another 2 weeks to 30 days to interview for those jobs. It'll take me another 2 weeks to train and get my first paycheck. Whereas I can literally go make $1,000 within the next hour just working on my business. And I can do that 7 days a week and make way. So I'm like, it's faster for me to just work on my business than it would be for me to go get a job. And I would be able to make more money too. So that always kept things into perspective. Is like literally the only choice is just to keep going. We're going to make a transition to sales. We're not going to focus too much on sales today because tomorrow we have like a 2 to 3 hour sales like block. So we're going to do a lot of sales talk tomorrow. But there is some info here on selling higher price points. So maybe you guys are starting your business off and charging what you know you're not necessarily maybe worth, and you want to learn how to increase that. And then also sales confidence. So learning how to get over backing down from calls. Now, here's my personal philosophy. When I was first starting in coaching, I did not care about making money. All I wanted to do was have clients on my roster. I wanted to be seen as a coach. I wanted to have client testimonials. I wanted to have the experience myself to be coaching. And that was more important to me than making money. My number one goal when I first started was to make $3,000 a month. That was it. And how I planned to do that was to have 30 clients pay me $100 a month. I kept my rates at $100 a month until I had 50 clients. Then when I asked, how do I scale my business? I was told to raise my prices. And so I went from around 4.5 to $5,000 a month. I raised it up to 200 and literally doubled my rates or doubled my revenue or income. I grandfathered everyone in at $100 a month. And then all of my new clients came in at 200. But the thing is, I had experience at that point taking X amount of calls, closing 50 people, to where when I pitched 200, I had so much experience and confidence on the calls that I didn't bat an eye, and none of my clients even questioned it, right? I did that for another 6 months at $200 a month, and then I raised it to 300. And again, my revenue went up. And by that point, I had taken hundreds of calls, closed hundreds of clients, to where I felt totally confident and normal because I've done it so many times. When I first launched PTBI, it was an online course. There was no coaching, no groups. It was nothing what it was compared to today. It was literally just a 5-module course. I sold it for $500 and gave people lifetime access to the course. The lifetime access to everything. There's still people who paid $500 who show up. They'll probably show up this weekend to this event because they have lifetime access to everything. Yeah, and they got the deal of a lifetime. They've got all the course material that we've added over the years, all the group coaching stuff. And then from there, I went from 500, raised it up to 1,200, and then we went from 1,200 to 3K. We went from 3K to 5K, and then 5K to 7.5K, which is where it's been around. Sometimes, depending on deals and specials, we'll knock down the price and stuff. But the purpose of what I'm telling you this is that selling higher price points comes with confidence. And oftentimes I see people who are brand new coaches. I want to sell 500 a month. It's like, sit down. Like, get your reps in. We always encourage them to do it too, because I always sometimes think that some people need to get their teeth knocked in first and foremost for them to learn their lesson. But it's like, dude, when you're going in, you're trying to sell $500 a month, but one, you don't have the confidence on the call to deliver it or the skill set to do it. Two, you don't have the offer built with enough value to justify that price point. Three, you don't have the client testimonials, client results to back it up. You're going to get told no over and over and over and over again. And then what's going to happen is you're going to get discouraged. You're going to want to quit, and you're going to decide this business probably isn't for you because you can't handle the rejection, when in reality, you didn't deserve that price point to begin with. So my honest opinion is that you should charge as little as you possibly can to justify, and then raise your rates as your experience grows, as your time becomes more limited, until you find that sweet spot. Hey, I'm making good money here. It's not too expensive. I used to say 300 to 400 was the sweet spot, but now with pricing, inflation, and all that kind of stuff, it's probably a little bit higher, maybe 350 to 450. But that's my honest approach, is that like, when it comes to selling higher price points, what you want to do is you just want to take as many calls as possible and close as many deals as possible. I would way rather you have a full roster of 30 clients paying you $100 a month than one client paying you $500 a month. You're going to make more money, but not only that, you're going to be working with more people. You're going to have more marketing material. You're going to have more confidence as a coach. You're going to have many more wins under your belt of being like, fuck yeah, I closed that client. Like, even if it's $100, like I still close that client. It adds fuel to the fire. People always ask, when do we raise prices? I always say raise your price when it doesn't make sense to charge what you're charging. When you're like, I have 30 clients, I literally cannot take this person on for $100 because it's not worth my time. That's when it's time to raise your prices. And at that point, you can afford a no, right? If you raise your rates from, and I'm not saying go out and charge, this is a mistake that I made. I didn't need to charge that little. I'm just using it as an example. But let's say I had 30, 45 clients paying me $100 a month. If someone said no, I threw out $250 and someone said no, it didn't matter to me. Like, I didn't even want that client anyway because I wouldn't have the time. But if they said yes, then I know, okay, prices are going up, right? So when it doesn't make sense to charge what you're charging, raise your prices. And I always say too, you're not so good in the beginning for you to be picky and choosy for clients. I would way rather you take clients and work with clients and actually get the experience as an online coach and actually build up your momentum than for you to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to charge anything less than $200 a month. Like, no, I'd rather you take the client than think you're too good for it.
I always analyze the deal before I prescribe whatever I'm going to do. So like what I see a lot of you guys do when you start is that you'll get to the end of your call and you'll break down, well, we have a 3-month for this much. We have a 6-month for this much. We have a 12-month for this much. When in reality, what you should be doing is gathering intel on the conversation, figuring out what's best for them, pitching them one thing, and that's it. When you pitch them that one thing, it's one of two things. You say, hey, it's $3,000. Hey, it's $2,000. Hey, it's $500 a month, whatever you want. Or you just menu close them for that specific option. So the way that it works is for the whole 6-month program, it's $599 a month, or it's a one-time investment of $3K, and that way you save $500. So what do you want to do? So that's the best way that I do it. Definitely don't the biggest thing that you want to eradicate from your sales process is any confusion that's going to throw people off the straight line, which is when you guys break down 3 separate things with 3 separate price points. So stay away from that. Don't do that at all. This is what it is. This is what it looks like. And you say it real confidently. The other thing too, it's not so much what you say, it's the way that you say it. So like if I have multiple different price points in general, like I'll just say with the utmost amount of confidence, this is what's going to be best for you. This is how the process looks. Let me show you what it looks like when you jump on board, and then just pitch them. Because, prescribing it and then doing it with confidence, the biggest thing that I've seen is that sales itself is literally a transference of confidence from you to the prospect. Transference of confidence and conviction in general. When you have the confidence in your service, and the confidence in your service is built through results for your clients, testimonials that you have, your experience, and also how much you've invested into your experience. You guys probably wouldn't be able to charge $500 a month if you guys didn't pay 10 grand to learn about online fitness coaching, right? But those are like the biggest things too. So that's super important.
If you're if you like recommend a 6 to 12 month commitment and their issue is like committing to that amount of time, do you push that, or do you say like, oh,
everything is a step down. Everything is a step down. So like whenever I pitch like fitness specific, I started in fitness. I sold like literally $1 million in $2,000 to $5,000 fitness coaching programs over the course of like 10 months or so, like when I first started selling. And all we did was, based on the whole conversation, we'd gather intel. By the way, biggest thing is how much progress they need to make and also what they do for work. Because if someone is unemployed and they're on Social Security and they're 65 years old and you pitch them $5,000, you're doing yourself a disservice. So, what they do for work, but also the progress they need to make, and then just go from there. But can you kind of reiterate the question?
Yeah, so if you're pitching, like if you think this person needs like a 6 or 12 month package and you pitch that, and their objection is like, oh, that's too much of a commitment.
Yeah, so I always go on the higher level. That's the other thing too. It's all comes down to confidence. So what do you feel comfortable pitching? I like to start high and then step down. As high as I think that I'm slightly above what they may say yes to, that's where I'm going to start, because if they're going to give me problems, I'll immediately step down. Cool. So the program's $3,000 for this, this, and this. And then they're going to say, well, it's too much. Okay, got it. Like outside of the funds, you want to do the whole process? Do you feel like it aligns with you? Yes. Okay, cool. Here's what we can do. Make it a lot easier for you. So yeah, I always step down immediately after they give me like a tough time, but it all depends on what they actually say. If they say, well, it's really expensive, freaking close them, right? If they say like, I definitely can't do that, immediately step down. You want to cause no sales resistance whatsoever. It's all about eradicating all the friction on the call. Just go right down. I normally start, like when I started with fitness, I didn't like to sell less than 6 months, because the reality, you can tell them when you're selling fitness, you're taking the doctor's frame big time. So like when you go into a doctor's office, he tells you, bro, this is what you need to do. Stop eating like an idiot, this, and this, right? And then they listen to it because it's the doctor. And then what they're going to, they'll give you maybe complaints, things like that. You can explain to them why that this is the best thing for you. Because can I suggest, why this is going to be the best option for you? Yeah, cool. So there's 2 reasons reasons. Number one is because you're not going to build the habits that you need and maintain the habits you need over the course of a 3-month period, right? So I'd be doing you a disservice to go any less than this amount of time because your habits are your biggest problem right now. And that's exactly what we're trying to fix. The other thing is like time to see progress. So, girl, like we're not going to get your goals. I used to tell the women a lot, literally my favorite thing to do. Like we're not going to get your goals if you got 50 pounds to lose, right? Doing this in 3 months, you're going to be stressing yourself out. It's not going to, I'd be doing you a disservice by saying, hey, let's do 3 months because that's not going to get you your goals. So let's do 6 months. We're going to take it step by step. We're going to get as close as possible to that 50 pounds and we'll take this thing all the way home. So like that's the way you do it. This is one thing that I really recommend you guys doing. The way we structured it, I don't sell fitness anymore, but the way that we structured it is before we pitch, the first thing that we say, when you have 3 parts of the sales call, right? It's discovery, it's pitch, and it's objections. And then it's close, obviously, right? So right at the beginning of the pitch, hey, is it cool if I break everything down for you? Here's why it sounds like you're a great fit. You get permission to pitch them, which is super important. Always get permission to pitch. And then you say, awesome. So the way that it works is the program is this amount of time long. You tell them that immediately right in the beginning of the pitch itself. So they have that time frame in their head. And then you can break that down over time. And if they give you problems at the end, you're just stepping down. You've already had the emotional connection. You've gotten the buy-in. You've gotten the tie down. Now it's just a matter of, slowly stepping down if that's the, if that's a problem. Do not pitch multiple different things to people. You will close substantially less. You can't do anything like people handle objections out of order. Like the problem that a lot of salespeople face is that they're coaches, right? They're struggling with the sequencing of questions, but also the sequencing of the way in which they handle objections. So if someone says it's really expensive and you just try to open wall with them, you're screwed. Like because you didn't get commitment. So the most important thing in handling an objection is understanding the commitment level they have prior to actually handling that objection. So if someone says, okay, gotcha. I don't think I can do that right now. Okay, not a problem. Outside of that, do you love the program? That's always the route that I take in that case. Do you really feel like this is the next best step for you based on everything that we've talked about? So getting commitment to the program, making sure that's fully bought in on, and they're not beating around the bush as to whether or not this is what they actually want to do. And then from there, I'd break it down. Okay, cool. Is it all right if I ask you some questions just to get a better idea of where things are at? We have all the different walks of life in the program, want to make sure I can prescribe something best for you. And then you just step down. And obviously, you want to collect the most cash up front, but that's it's a story for a different time, obviously. But that's kind of how I do that. The purpose of the first call is tell them, hey, what I want to do is just see where you're at, see if there's any way I could possibly provide value. And if it sounds like I can, we can schedule a longer call where I'll break down my whole process and prescribe you a solution. So if they're asking that in general, something was probably done wrong in the first part of that call. The other way that you can also handle that too is, hey, I'm not even totally sure that I can help you. That's the reason I want to chat a little bit more to just break things down and see if we can, figure out what's really going on here. So that's the way you do that. The other thing too is providing value between those 2 sessions or even on the initial discovery call. That is super important because otherwise, why are they going to want to talk to you again?
But here's why I always stand behind the 2 call and the discovery call process. It's not for you. Can you close in 1 call? Probably, right? But it's for the prospect. Are they ready to buy from a stranger on their first interaction? Probably not. And so the 2 call process is a very easy ask for you to make in the DMs without a huge commitment from a total stranger. So it gets them into the door and it allows you to build a relationship with them because now you're not a total complete stranger. You're someone that they've had a good interaction with. They have a little bit more trust. They might be willing to say yes to a 45-minute Zoom call.
Right.
Whereas if you're pitching a 45-minute Zoom call to a total stranger on the internet, you're going to get a lot of no's than yeses. But if you're pitching a 10-minute phone call where you can just learn a little bit more about their goals and point them in the right direction, you're going to get a lot more yeses. So the goal is to just get people to that first step so you can then invite them to the longer call. And also, when you invite them to the longer call, you give them context that this is going to be a sales call. So now they're saying yes and understanding that, hey, I need to be ready to buy, or we just end it right here.
It's a problem when someone doesn't know that, this is the next call.
It is a huge problem.
We're not having a play date.
Or also, it's a huge problem when you get someone on the sales call and they don't know it's a sales call.
Right.
It's a huge problem.
You want to give them a very brief taste of what the program looks like. So for PTBI, it's this, and this. You briefly explain everything in 1 or 2 sentences. Transition. Yes. Yeah. Well, it's do you feel like this would help you? Yes. Okay, cool. What we can do is we can schedule a little bit longer of a call where we'll break things down more intimately. And if you love it at that point, we can talk about possibly working together.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say is a lot of fitness coaches who are getting into business, this is the very first time where you have to be the alpha dog. Most people who are introverted have a hard time getting into entrepreneurship because you do have to be the big dog and control these conversations. And so the really easy way to do that is just pre-frame the call very confidently and tell them how the call is going to go.
Every time.
Hey, this call is so I can learn a little bit more about you. I can help point you in the right direction with some tips and advice. And I'd love to share with you a little bit about what I do to see if I can help. Is that cool? Perfect. And then you just follow that framework. I'm going to ask you about your goals. What are you looking for? What are you struggling with? Awesome. Here's my advice to you. This is what I would do if I were you. And obviously your advice is going to perfectly align with what you offer. So like in order for them to do what your advice is, like your offer is the perfect solution for that. And then you could say, hey, is it cool if I explain a little bit more about what I do? You keep it super high level. Say, is this something that would interest you? I guess, yeah, essentially, is this something that would interest you? Perfect. Let's schedule a second call. So you control the conversation. If they ask you questions like, well, how does it work? Well, that's what the second call is for. What's the price point? Well, that's what the second call is for. Well, how long is it? That's what the second call is for. So like you control the conversation in that sense. Oftentimes when people don't know how to close off that call and end it is because they're getting manhandled by the prospect on the call with their questions. They don't know how to take control.
That's the same thing with the sales call too. Like you will always, 90% of the time you will lose the deal if you just let the prospect ask random questions throughout the entire course of the sales call rather than being like, hey, I have a certain way of explaining things. I'll definitely get to that, but let me ask you next question. When you're breaking down your process, when you're giving them the pitch, ask them like, do they have questions about this specifically? And if it's not related to that, yeah, I'm definitely going to cover that, but is there any questions on this? And then, you kind of go from there. So you need to own the call. If you don't own the call, like the confidence, the transfer of some confidence is not there and conviction is not there and you're not closing. So it needs to be your call. Everyone knows how much money they have. There needs to be commitment. There needs to be urgency and commitment at the end of the call in general. And they need to be bought into the process itself. And if they immediately say, well, I don't know how much money I have in my bank account right now. Normally there's something going wrong there. But like an example of a way that I would address that, they say, I don't have much, I don't have money right now. Okay, well, do you have the ability to, do this in the first place? Like, would you be able to do the program anyway? Do you like the program itself? They know whether or not they have the funds to do this specifically, even if they don't have the funds in their, they don't know how much money is in their account as a whole. You need to have commitment level high, even though because if the commitment level is high and it's like a little bit too much reoccurring or a little bit too much whatever, then what do you just go into? You go into mindset and alignment. It's, hey, this is where you were at. This is where you were looking to go. Like, it's going to take some time. You take a whole mindset trail there. The assumptive close doesn't really work as much as it used to because everyone has so much information. Having a little bit more detachment in general is actually more viable and helpful in like modern day selling, versus just being like frame. Hey, you want to do this, right? You want to do this, right?
So here's the thing too. You're dealing with a very different type of prospect in person. The people who are hiring in-person trainers are not the same people who are hiring online coaches. Typically, people who are hiring online coaches, they know how to train. They need structure and accountability. They need to be told what to do, but they don't need accountability in showing up. And they typically have been in the gym for 6 to 12 months and they're like, okay, I'm ready for the next step. So you're just working with a little bit more, it's a different prospect entirely. We're going to go to Keitha, Al, and then Brady, and then we're going to move on to the next topic.
I guess so mine's more of a question. I feel like a lot of my clients have a really hard time pre-blocking. They don't know how to sound organic and natural and ask the right questions. So like spousal.
Everything it's like you're nonchalantly plugging these questions in over the course of the conversation. So like, for example, one of the biggest ways when I was selling fitness that I'd be building rapport while asking objection handling questions in the front end of the convo. So I'd be like, hey, Stacy, like, are you married? You have kiddos running around? So that's like an example. But like we'll go a lot deeper into that. If you don't pre-handle like the big three, like fear, time, and spouse, like on the front end of the call, whichever one you didn't touch on, 100% of the time that will be your objection at the end.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow we're doing
I'm excited for that one. I'm stoked for that one.
We're going to be doing a lot of sales training tomorrow. Al, you had a question, then we'll go to Brady, and then we'll move on.
Do you think it depends on like your expertise with sales calls? Because I've never done a discovery call. I just go straight into a sales call, and it's like maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes.
It depends on where your leads are coming from. If you have leads that have been following you for 6 to 12 months, they know you, trust you, and they're ready to sign up, then you could take them straight to a sales call. But if you're going cold, if you're doing your own outbound lead generation, if you're going paid traffic, there's a rule of thumb with sales that it takes about 7 hours worth of content for someone to build trust with your brand. If we're taking, most of you guys have closed here because you saw an ad on Instagram, but if we took you straight to a sales call, you probably wouldn't have enough trust with our brand to, invest. And so our process is, get you with the ad into the DMs, We have a conversation with you. Then we have you talk to our team, non-committal, 10, 15, where you get information, learn a little bit more. Then we send you to an hour-long video. Underneath the hour-long video, there's a ton of testimonials. And then we get you onto a sales call. By the time you get onto the sales call, after seeing our ad 2 days ago, you've already
show up.
By the time you get onto the sales call and get the information for the program with the price point, you have already consumed 4 to 5 hours worth of content within the last 2 days. And so it creates more touch points. It adds a little bit more credibility. When we launch paid traffic for most of our takeover students, we always make sure to include an indoctrination video. So that way you can totally take someone who's never heard of you before and then turn them into a warm prospect who loves your brand. Most of you guys have seen that video. We make you watch that video before the sales call. In a discovery call allows you to build more trust with the prospect. If you're not having an issue with it yet, what will happen is when your closing rate goes down because the leads are too cold, then you'll want to introduce a discovery call. But I'm actually curious. I'd be curious to hear Ryan's thoughts. Like, when should you introduce a discovery call from a one call close?
It goes back to I'll just use a personal anecdote. Like, I've been in the sales industry for a while, and there's only two types of sales processes: one call or two call close. Any business that is doing a one call close, they will heat check you or hard check you or like quiz you like crazy on your ability, on your skill set initially, since it's a one call close and you have to be really good, rather than businesses that are doing two call closes, because the marketing does a lot of the work too. I mean, once again, it does matter like where your leads come from and stuff, but what's working works, you know, like so.
If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
The other reason why I love two call closes as well is because we work with a lot of people who've never taken a sales call in their life. And so oftentimes, like, having asking for a 10-minute call isn't as scary as asking for a sales call. And two, by the time they get on the sales call, the coach has also had 10 to 15 minutes with the prospect. That's kind of calmed their nerves a little bit, broken the ice. They're a little bit more comfortable with the person as well. So that's another benefit for a discovery call.
When you're in a sales conversation, you want to be one notch higher than the prospect. So like not coming at it as your best friend, but rather like a friend and a coach, so that you're here and they're here. And then when they give you nonsense at the end, it's aligning them with what they initially said. Making sure that you're one step above them on the initial call, that you're coming off as a coach rather than just like, hey girl, like I'm your best friend. You know what I mean? And then the other thing too, is the confidence which you deliver the back end of the call too. So like, I'm going to say, hey, Stacy, like what questions do you have for me? Like, where do you want to go from here? Well, yeah, like, I mean, I love the program. Like, what's the next step? Awesome. So here's the next step. You get this, this, and this when you sign on. The investment is this. What are your thoughts on that? And that's the whole thing. And you just shut up and then you listen to what they say and you sequentially handle the objection and you stay as far away from finances as possible until you have to bring finances back into the equation. In our old, we had this framework that we had back when I was selling fitness. The one thing that I would never follow the script, just the framework, but like the one thing I always said every time was like, hey, John, like, hey, Stacy, like, do I have a permission to just be a coach and coach you on this at all times, be real with you, and, maybe even call you out if it comes to that. I'll say that exact thing. And then at the end, they give me bullshit. I say, okay, gotcha. Stacy, can I be a coach for a sec? And then you literally just go back to that and they sign up.
There's a couple things I was going to add. One thing I was going to add too is like, how would you treat them if they were already your clients and they didn't follow their macros for a week? You'd probably have a hard conversation with them about priorities, putting them in the spot.
You're doing this to yourself.
So you're already their coach when they show up to the sales call. I always say that the sales call is your first opportunity to demonstrate your value as a coach.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and especially when you say like, "Can I coach you?" or like, because I feel like that does establish a lot of respect too. Because I feel like if I were to get on a call with someone and she were to like, that's why you hire a coach, for someone to tell you what to do, and like I need to come from the angle of being like, okay, then this is like what you need.
Yeah.
This is what we're gonna do. Does that sound like something?
We would even say, hey, can I put on my coaching hat, or can I be a coach for a sec? Like, not a friend, but like really coach on this. Yeah. And then you just tell them straight up.
And that is how I am with my girls, and it's we have a really good relationship in that way.
Think about how you coach your clients that are already in the program. Yeah. Like if someone's blow up and they go on vacation and it's like, what did you do? What went on there? Like what was the, can you help me understand what that looked like? Right? Like that's the biggest thing. That's how I sell.
Stacy. Yeah.
Stacy always.
Brett, did you have more to add to that?
Yeah, so basically too, then when they have objections at the end or like you're finding out like what Ryan says where like what's your biggest roadblock, your biggest challenge? Like, I'll get progress and I'll self-sabotage or don't have a routine. It's like, well, hey, listen, I'm coaching now. This is going to give you the routine.
Yeah.
And you're also, you just said too, that this program is what you're looking for. Make sure you ask that question as well at the end. That's going to get you all your goals.
Yeah, alignment.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, you need to think about it. Well, no, you can't think about it.
Yeah.
I'm here to actually.
I wouldn't want to get on a sales call with this.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's how I got a closet from this one girl. She said that she tends to overthink things, and she'll self-sabotage and take too much time to think about it and not take action. And I'm like, okay, let's do a deposit because she has like a half marathon she's doing in May, and she's like, I want to get started then, but can I think about the deposit in a couple days? I'm like, no. This is your pattern that you normally do. You talk yourself.
If we're not going to work together, if you're not going to, take steps in the right direction.
You need to take a step. And she's like, okay, I'll do it. And then the next day, she was like, thank you so much for not letting me get off that.
Because every single person that gets off, for you guys too, like when you're selling fitness, it's not like it's ROI based. ROI based, everyone in the world wants to make more money. When it's fitness oriented, it's your duty and obligation to close them down on that first call because they're not coming back. You're getting like maybe 20% of people that are on follow-ups. So like you want to close down on that first call with whatever, ability you can.
I will say tomorrow when we do the role play and kind of like the breakdowns, you're going to see how far Ryan will take it with someone. And most people, we did this last year where Ryan kind of like went back and forth and like people get uncomfortable. Like people watching, like I got uncomfortable watching Ryan seeing how far he took it. But that's how far you need to take it.
But the thing is, like, the reality is discomfort equals growth, right? And they're trying to do things they've never done before, and that's the whole part. As long as you don't create friction, and you can understand that by intuition. Like you don't want to create friction or sales resistance, but you really want to align them. And like I will go and then sometimes if it's going to come to it, and it's really like that, I'll just burn the shit out of the lead. Like I'll just be like, this is not going to happen. Like this, and this, and they'll never speak to us again.
But usually, and it's like,
dude, I mean,
at that point, what do you have to lose? Because they're not coming back anyway. At that point, what do you have to lose? They're not coming back.
We do want them to feel really stupid they didn't buy after they get off the call.
Yeah.
You always feel like there's a barrier when you start. I remember that was my thought process when I got into sales. Like, shoot, like that's, literally what I was thinking 100%. Then you realize that there's literally two ways that people are going to pay. They pay with money or they pay with time. So which one are they going to pay with? I'm offering you a very direct solution. Like that's, you know what I mean? So
we get people who will literally leave the Zoom room when they're giving us their card because we've pushed them so much so far.
That's actually better than getting hung up on before you get to that point. But like what I find is that in like beginner salespeople, like, some of you guys, for example, like that is something that you struggle with a lot until you get really, really good with the way that you're handling objections. And then that starts to happen less. So like for me, literally like the first time I took a sales call, like the guy asked for reading off script, like someone thought it was $10, $9.99, like $10 versus $1,000, right? Like I didn't know what I was doing, but I wouldn't stress too much about that. I would just go over those calls and look at if you're doing it over Zoom, it's very evident when you look at game tape where you went wrong. So you see it in their face, you see it in the way your inflection is in your voice, whatever it may be. Go back over that call and see where you went wrong and then go from there. But just like Zakk said, you're doing something right when they literally can't tell you no. You're going to have some people that are just idiots that'll take out their credit card, say 5-4 and then leave the Zoom.
I will say just something to think about. Entrepreneurship in general, business in general, sales in general, you have to change as a person. Business is the ultimate personal development tool because it will highlight all of your weaknesses that are keeping you from being successful. And oftentimes, people who start a business have never been in a leadership position. Think about when it was time to play dodgeball in PE. Were you the person that rose your hand and became team captain to pick your team and lead your team? Probably not, right? But when you're starting a business, you now have to be that person. You do have to go through changes as a person and step into places that have made you very uncomfortable. Because oftentimes, that was me through high school too. I was a watcher, not a player. I never played the sports. I was always sitting on the sidelines watching. I was never the person in class to raise my hand and give out an answer. I was also never the type of person to stand up to someone who was, giving me shit. I was always the person who just kind of brushed it off my shoulder. But when it comes to getting to business, you now have to be that person to become that pushes people. So just be aware of that. Like there is going to be a personal transformation. You do have to change as an individual in order for you to be successful in business long term.
Yeah, it's like a direct byproduct. You can't be in sales without being a student of personal development. You can't because it requires you to set goals. It requires you to understand where you went wrong versus most of society that's just la-di-da-di-da, like they're not actually focused on the growth side of things.
Just want to give a quick shout out to Francis, Carson that came in. These guys are PTBI students. They have the aesthetic dream. They've been in PTBI. Francis joined in 2020 working at Chipotle when he was 19, and he's about to hit a 40K month this month. These guys follow me wherever I go. I moved to San Diego. They moved there. I moved to Vegas. They they came over, and now that we're good friends. So we'll probably be calling on Francis and Carson for a couple of these topics. But I wanted to make a transition and talk about lead gen real quick. So what I want to do is I want to get some outside perspective from just me talking from some of the takeover students that have built 10K, 15, 20K month businesses on how they go through lead gen. Because obviously you guys have gone through the PTBI material. Lead gen is lead gen, but there might be a few things here and there that you might pick up. Blaze, I'm going to call on you. Blaze was able to hit a 17K month business within his, 60 days? I think your first month you hit like 7K, and then your second month you hit 17K. Literally within 6 months of joining the program, he's hiring employees, he's scaling his business. Dude started Instagram. He started PTBI with less than 250 followers. Less than 250 followers on Instagram, 17K within 60 days. So Blaze, what is your approach with lead generation? How do you go about getting leads? Give us your breakdown.
I would say that I've been very fortunate, and I guess I kind of brushed over my background. My father's actually a military guy as well. So I spent a lot of time traveling to new states, going to new schools, being the new guy and having to be comfortable kind of being that new guy. So I think I can kind of attribute a lot of that success in talking to somebody to that, and kind of getting into interpersonal relationships and trying to understand and names. I think I could go around the whole room right now and remember everybody's name that kind of came up. And that's another thing that I think is really important. If you don't take the time to understand this person just told you a piece of themselves, if you ask somebody what's the most important word in the English dictionary, they're going to tell you their own name. Like, that's the one thing that you hear your parents have been, yelling at you from across a Costco or whatever, and you're running around driving bikes around or whatever kind of your personal story is. One thing that I kind of leaned into is like, hey, trying to get understanding of the people around me first. The organic growth has always been something that I feel like comes naturally to me, and it sounds like there's a lot of people in here too that comes naturally to you as well. So why not talk to those people about the things that you do, things that you like, things that you don't like, and why not get their perspective about where they are and where they're stuck? So just leaning into your own emotional intelligence has been something that I've been trying to do over the course of this whole program, at least in our business, as well as kind of beyond that. And then I told you guys too up front, like, my biggest challenge right now is growth. I mean, we've got 570 people or so that follow our business page. And then between the two of us, we might have 1,000 people on our personal accounts. That's not a lot of eyeballs on the stuff that we're seeing, but we're still able to turn the money out because we've taken the time to get to know those people, understand the things that are going wrong, and then not being afraid to talk to people that are new as well. So we're traveling over and I'm sitting in an airport lounge and I sit down next to some old guy. I'm gonna be like, hey man, what do you do? I'm blah, blah, blah. And we'll chat out a little bit and he'll ask what I do. And I used to say, oh, I'm a Coast Guard pilot. And now I lead with, hey, I run my own online fitness business and I fly planes for the Coast Guard. And now it's become a part of my identity. It becomes part of what I do now. And it's basically how I kind of lead into more discussion. Sometimes they're like, oh yeah, how's flying planes? I'm like, oh, it's cool. And then sometimes they're like, oh, hey, what's the deal with the online business? What do you do? Do you do nutrition stuff? Do you do X, Y, or Z? And I've got a digital business card that I carry around with me all the time. If somebody ever has questions or anything like that, they can go check it out. And that's kind of how I do it. And there's a lot of nuance too that I think we kind of brushed over when we talked through hey, how do you build the rapport? How do you make these things happen? And Zakk talks about it a ton. It's giving out shit for free. Zakk does how many YouTube videos are on your guys' channel at this point? Every program that we've written is on YouTube for free. If people were smart, they could go on my YouTube channel and they could find every single workout that's in our program and make their own workout, but they're not gonna do that because people are lazy as shit, right? So realistically, if you're able to build that, and you're able to build that, free offer for somebody as well, it's just an email funnel that you can use Zapier on, and I can show you guys if anybody's interested in this later on too, of they fill out a form, they click submit, and they get an automated email once a day and it'll come to them. And then they're a warm lead. A cold lead that knew nothing about you becomes a warm lead because you gave them something for free workouts, free whatever, and you already built all the systems anyway. So why not just give it out to somebody else that then could become a free client? And then you get to know you, they get to see pictures and videos of us making donuts or whatever kind of the latest and greatest is. And then they start to kind of understand who you are and what you're kind of about. So that's kind of how I've done it so far. Again, my biggest pitfall is I don't have 30,000, 100,000 people looking at my shit, which is okay, I think, for now. It's not, I don't think I need that, at least personally. But obviously, it's going to help us make the most impacts for the most amount of people. So we're looking to kind of grow that over the next couple months.
Yeah, there's a couple things I wanted to highlight. The very first time I met Blaze, he came a little late to the October retreat just this past year in 2023. He came in and I was like, I had this reaction. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Because he comes in shaking everybody's hand. Yo, man, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? I'm like, how does he know everybody? The truth is he didn't. His first instinct walking into the room was saying hi to every single person in the room, which again goes back to an identity shift. Most of you guys have not been that type of person your entire life. So it requires you to step out of your comfort zone and become someone who is able to do that. And then what was interesting too is like later that weekend, what was the product that you had, the ear buzzer?
Oh yeah, I have it here actually too.
He'll probably pitch you on this thing too.
Yeah, we like did a partnership with a company that, if anybody's familiar with the vagus nerve, it's like a nerve that kind of runs behind your ear. Big piece of it. It's like there's a lot of research that's come out about it reducing anxiety and stress for people. So sleep aid. If you're a public speaking event and like you're somebody who hates public speaking, like you could hit this little, I call it a neck taser, before you get up there in front of people, and then it'll kind of calm you down. It reduces your heart rate, does a bunch of shit. Well, long story short, like I saw this product, I got in a partnership with this company, and now like I'm an affiliate with them, and I like brought it with me, and I was like, hey, like this is something that we like and endorse, and we've kind of done it with a lot of our other products on Amazon. You can become an Amazon affiliate if you just have an Amazon account. If none of you guys have done that, you should totally do that with the pre-workout you take or the Crete or whatever supplementation you're doing. If anybody wants information on how to do that, let me know, and it's like free money for you if you just share a link. But that's kind of what we did with that too.
The purpose is by the end of the weekend, he was selling this to, like, he wasn't selling fitness coaching. He was selling someone else's product to, he wasn't afraid to do it, right? He wasn't afraid to say hi to every single person that was in the room. He wasn't afraid to ask questions. He also wasn't afraid to sell a product that wasn't even his because he just genuinely loved it. There's also another student, Jordan Smallwood, who was at the PTBI retreat last year. I just put up a client success interview with him on my YouTube channel. So if you guys want to check that out, it's one of the last 5 videos. Literally everywhere we went to a few different locations. He would come back from the bathroom and be like, yo, I got a lead. I got a call set up for Monday. I'm like, dude, you're a walking lead magnet. How are you doing that? He's like, I was standing in line. I was next to this person, just asked him, hey, how you doing? What brought you out tonight? Like, what do you do for work? Oh, me, I'm an online coach. Oh yeah. Like, I'd love to see if I can help you. And the dude was not afraid to talk to people. So many people are afraid to talk to people. So that is your number one problem with lead generation is leads don't just come from online. They also come offline as well. An in-person lead is always going to be stronger than an online lead cold because you have that opportunity to make a first impression. I remember I made more money traveling to Australia than I spent in Australia because of the clients that I signed from the people that I met in my hostel. Partied with them for 2 weeks. Within, a month, 5 of them became clients because I wasn't afraid to talk about what I do, how I can help them, and offer my services. How many, and this is just a rhetorical question, you don't have to raise your hand, but when you walk into a room and you meet someone for the first time and they ask you what you do, how many of you guys say, I'm an online fitness coach? Right? A few of you. Most of you guys would probably revert back to I'm an in-person trainer or I bust tables or I'm a college student, but you don't own that identity. That's what I'm talking about when things need to change as a person in order for you to start attracting those leads, bringing them to you. I do want to call on Brett for lead generation. What advice would you have for generating leads online, in person? How were you able to build your business from nothing to 15K a month this month?
Thank you. Yeah, it's so it goes back to what you said, owning that, this is your identity. This is what you do, and you talk about it all the time to anyone and everyone. A lot of leads do come I've had, in going back to Blaze, like, I put a lot of value out in my content where I teach people different stuff that's within the program. And one of the things when I first joined PTBI that totally sold me on what Zakk was teaching was, I don't remember what video he said, but when he's talking about what content to post online, you said, give the entire farm away. And I was like, oh, this guy's legit. I like him a lot already. And that's exactly what I've done, where I post a lot of stuff where I teach people how to do stuff, like where if you wanted to teach people different moves, you could go on my page and I have the entire progression breakdown. I don't hold anything back. And I've had people that have done the moves, they learn it, they open up their hips, they remove back pain, etc. And they never become clients of mine, but they send my content to other people who then become clients of mine. And so you want to just basically provide as much value as you possibly can. And it's not so much about posting content that gets views. It's more about posting content that changes views. The way that people view, for me, it's about more movement freedom, people in less pain, more mobility, flexibility, etc. I want people to come on the page and to be like, oh, this is a guy worth following because of all the stuff that he gives away. I don't have to buy a program from him to get a lot of value with it. And so when I'm in the DMs, when people start following me, I'm just trying to help people genuinely to see what I can. And that's too with Al, the discovery call. You can just hop on discovery calls and just help people. And yeah, not even worry about sales calls at all. Like you go on the discovery call with your number one intention being to provide value to this person, not to get them to a sales call. That's not the number one intention. And then if the value that you're providing, if you say like, I have a lot more to offer this person, an extenuation of that is the sales call, that's the right move. Or, hey, I have a bunch of these tutorials, which by the way has really helped when people are not a good fit for the program, whether financially for whatever reason, or I don't think they're gonna be too compliant. I will send them like, hey, these are the 3 moves I think will really help you. I've already created content on that's already on there. So I don't have to do any work. I literally just forward 3 tutorials that I made on my Instagram and boom, they're good to go. And I've had people come back to me. Like I had a girl that I started talking to last year and I've just sent her stuff while she did Pilates on her own. And she's constantly kept in touch with me. And she's going to be a 1-year, $4,000 pay in full next week. She took out a credit card just to pay for it and everything. I've already put down a deposit. Is already kind of in the program. And I literally just sent her tutorials over the past months. And you would think initially a scarcity mindset would be like, oh, she's going to have the whole program and not need me anymore. But that's the complete opposite of it. They remember you, people remember you, and they share it with people that also need your content. And there's a lot of people that are watching your content, guys, right now. You'll never know, will never respond to a DM from you, will never like a single post, but they will send your post, stuff that you do, to a future client of yours. I guarantee you that is true for each and every one of you, but that is only true if you show up as genuine and actually trying to help people. If you just try to show up to increase your revenue on your content, people are gonna feel that. They're gonna know that because you're just posting for you. If you post for other people, they're gonna feel that too. And that's gonna transfer to more revenue as well.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to add in on that. If you went to my YouTube channel, you 110% could build a full-time 10K per month business if you just watch those YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. But here's how it plays out. People typically don't have the time, energy, and patience to organize all of those videos into a structured manner that will actually get them results. And 2, they want accountability and feedback. And so we had a client from Australia, his name is JP, he's in Keitha's group. He signed on to PTBI because he watched some of our call reviews. And he's like, I learned so much on these call reviews. I want to have my calls reviewed. And he joined PTBI to have his calls reviewed. So if you give everything away on YouTube, then people will find bits and pieces of what you have to offer and then sign up for the entire experience. The other thing too, I wanted to add about discovery calls, that this always drives me up a wall, is when people, I'm not going to take a discovery call because he's 17 years old and in high school and has no money. It was like, well, do you have the time to take it? What else are you doing with your time? Like, just fucking help the guy. Like, I talked to every single person when I was fitness coaching, even with PTBI, because I wanted to help people. You know, if someone was 16 years old in high school and I knew didn't have the money, I would still talk to him because I wanted to help people. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to have a conversation where I knew I put good into the world. It will always come back to you somehow. And I don't know how it came back, but like, I talk to everybody. Everyone deserves your expertise and minutes on that.
Yeah, to add to that too, where just doing the free discovery calls for people are not going to sign for you, sign up, probably not even down the road. Like I did a full sales call to this kid that was in the Philippines, and they absolutely could not afford my program whatsoever. And I'm just like, this kid, just the way he reached out, I was like, man, I just really want to actually like help him. And it kind of became like almost like half a session that we did on Zoom call as well, not even a sales call. And that genuine interest and energy of helping people, the way that comes back to you may not be financially, but it will be energetically. And that will then eventually be financially. Because if you just do the discovery calls with the, hopefully, even if he doesn't sign now, maybe 6 months from now, because I need the money, that's coming from a place of lack. Yes, yeah. Well, you're trying to exchange something with the universe where you're like, well, I'll do this discovery call if you give me money down the road from someone else. Or no, I'll just do this because I genuinely care about helping people. And it's also, in my opinion, a sin to hold on to knowledge and value that you have and keep it for yourself if it can genuinely help people.
Yeah.
Like, it really, truly is a major sin if you have something that can help and improve people's lives and you keep it to yourself and you die with that information.
What we're saying is just give more value, like real hard set value. Give away the things that you feel uncomfortable giving away because other people are paying for it. We've noticed a direct correlation in our business that the more calls we put on the calendar of just people to talk to in general, the more money we make. Even though with more calls that we put on the calendar, there's a significantly amount more disqualified and like really bad leads that we talk to. It's still true that the fact that the more calls we have on the calendar of just people that we talk to in general, the more revenue we make that month. Every time we've had a bad month in business has been when our call volume of people that we're speaking to drops significantly. So I always just say like, just open up the floodgates and talk to more people in general. But Francis, do you have anything to add? Just lead generation in general, how to get more calls on the calendar?
I think the biggest shift for me this past year was just completely changing up my ideal client, because for me, I was trying to help everybody in the past, right? So when I specifically focused on just one person that I was trying to help, right, which is an experienced gym goer, a lot more people came to me, and a lot more people were saying yes to me because of that. And I would also add in that you can't really try to help everybody. Obviously, if people come to you, do your thing, but the way you market is like everything, right? The way you market is like everything. So my YouTube content is directly correlated to just experienced gym goers. Every time I hop on my stories, I just think about, okay, I'm talking to just one experienced gym goer. Every single thing that I do on social media is just directly correlated to that ideal client. So that was my biggest shift, and a lot more people. Cool.